Okay, back to the ego and back to thinking. I had a friend, still have a friend, he's still around, and we'll call him Gary. We'll just call him Gary. That's not his name, but we'll call him Gary. And Gary called me one day, this is a number of years ago, like probably, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago. I'd been, like a lot of my friends, I'm a spiritual counselor and guide too, mostly because I'm able to listen. I'm getting better and better at listening. And that's probably why people call me more, so I can hear them. I really can, and I hear myself in them too, but I try to hear them. At any rate, he called me out of the blue one day, and he was cross country, and he was feeling desperate. And Gary says, "Dale," he says, "I need your help." He says, "I'm in trouble." I could hear it in his voice. I said, "Okay, Gary." Well, I said, "I got a few minutes here," and I didn't have a lot of time because I think I had to do a wedding or something like that. I was still a minister and a pastor, or whatever. And so I said, "I've got about 10, 15 minutes I've got for you, and I'll do my best to help you. And I think I can help you." And I said, "What's going on?" And he said, I don't think I'm going to make it. Because I could hear it in his voice when he called. He said, I'm desperate. I think I'm going to kill myself. I said, Sharon, his girlfriend's name was Sharon. And he said, that isn't the right name, but his girlfriend's name is Sharon. And he said, Sharon's going to leave me. And I knew of his history that his father had committed suicide when he was young, because his mother had threatened to leave him, and he had blown his brains out. And Gary had seen that, had seen him afterwards, had seen the carnage of it. And he'd also told me that Gary told me that he tried to commit suicide, like, I don't know, number of years before, maybe 5, 6 years before, that he told me this story because again, a woman that he was in love with was leaving him. And that was a theme for him, a very powerful theme, that his life really revolved around having what he thought was a beautiful woman by his side. And if he didn't have a beautiful woman by his side, he was in danger. And if that woman, he did have one, and she threatened to leave him, that was upset the apple cart. That was like considered checking out time. And he was talking about killing himself when he called me. That's why he called me, to tell me he was worried that he was going to kill himself. And I said, okay. I said, Gary, let's. I said, I can help you, I think. I didn't know what I was going to do. I really didn't. But I was definitely there because he was desperate. And so the first thing I said to him, what jumped out of my head right away, because I'd never done this before, and with the first thing that happened to me, I jumped out of my mind, and I said to him, Gary, give me 3 reasons why Sharon's leaving you could be the best thing that ever happened to you. And he went right away. He went, oh, God, Dale, are you hearing me? I can't live without her. Don't ask me that. Oh, my God, no. No, I'm hanging by a thread here. And I went, so I'm listening to it. And I said, okay. And I listened to him tell all that. And then I said to him, and then I kind of come back, and when it's desperate like that, Spirit speaks to me pretty clearly, like not do this. It's just like it comes out of my mouth. And then I'm quiet for a moment, and all of a sudden I said to him, okay, all right, well, tell me again. And he told me the story of what was happening, why he wanted to commit suicide. And then I said it to him. I said, so she said she's going to leave you. You're pretty sure of that. And you're saying to me that if she leaves, because of your history and who you are and how you feel, that it's very possible you commit suicide. You'll kill yourself. Is that what you're telling me? And Gary said, yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I said, okay, I got that. All right. And he just went, okay, or something like that. Then I said, okay, so I'm going to ask you one question now. And he said, okay. I said, give me one reason, not 3, one reason why Sharon's leaving you could be the best thing that ever happened to you. And Gary went right away, same thing. Went, God, Dale, no, I can't bear it. And I stopped him right then. because I didn't realize that this is what I was doing, but this is what I was doing. Because I stopped him right then, because I guess what was happening was I realized or Spirit through me realized on one level that I was talking to his ego. And I said, wait a minute. I said, listen to me. I heard, you've told me the story. I've heard it, that she could leave you and you could kill yourself. And you know what, Gary? That could be true. I said that to him. I said, that could be true. But right now, I don't want to hear it anymore. I want to ask you another question. I want you to consider answering that, because I've already agreed with you that could be true. So I said again, give me one reason why her leaving you could be the best thing that ever happened to you. And again, he's like, Dale, I can't, I don't, what do I do with that question? I said, then he started going like, because I'm ready to kill him. I said, stop. I said, I already heard that, and I've agreed that's possible. You could kill yourself, okay? You could kill yourself. But now I want to ask you something different, okay? I want you to consider something else. You don't have to tell me that story anymore. I agree, it's possible. Okay, and he's like, okay. And I said, now, give me one reason why her leaving you could be the best thing that ever happened to you. And don't go to that story again. And he sat for a while, and I could feel him squirming, and he said, well, I guess if she wasn't the right person for me, that would be good for me. And I said, that could be true, Gary. That could be true, couldn't it? And he said, yeah. Kind of like that, like, yeah, I suppose, I don't know. And then right away I said, okay, so give me. And again, the language was real important, I realized too, because when he said that he could commit suicide, I said that could be true. I didn't say it was true. I said that could be true. And then when he said when I gave him the other question, and he said this was one other reason, like her leaving could, if she was the wrong person, could be good for him. I said that could be true. So then again, I said, give me one more reason why her leaving you could be the best thing that happened to you. He said, okay, he was a little quicker at that. He said, okay, well, he still struggled on it. I said, I guess if she was gone and I found the right person, then I'd be available. I said, that could be true, couldn't it? Couldn't it? And he said, yeah, that could be true. That could be true. And then I asked him one more time. I said, okay, so give me one more reason, Gary, why her leaving you could be the best thing that ever happened to you. And he pretty quickly riveted off this other answer. And to this day, every time I tell the story, I cannot remember. I've tried to remember what he said. I probably didn't hear it because I heard his voice instead. He rattled off this answer, and then as soon as he finished it, he said, Dale, Sharon's leaving me could be the best thing that ever happened to me. And I said, that could be true, Gary. That could be true. And he was fine. She left him. And he did not try to commit suicide. He's in another relationship now. Is he cured of that? I don't know. But I do know something happened for both of us there with his ego. And what I learned from that was really interesting, because one of the things I learned was that was really important, and it probably helped me. Because that story was before when my ego came to me and said, you can't do this, can you? And then what was actually talking to me like real friendly, like my ego was talking like honest with me. But what I realized that was when dealing with the ego, like any other person, you're in your life, and it's the most special in a sense. People aren't real. By the way, people aren't real. No, they are the light of the world. They are pure presence being, manifesting this individuality that you are. And that whole thing about how we're connected as that one that does that, that's enough for another video and probably a few videos. But I'm not going to go into that. But people are, their light is coming out, and their stories aren't the reality. The stories are the things that get in the way of the light, that are holding it back. and or like camouflaging it, dimming it in a sense, putting a shade over it, trying anyways. You can't really do it, but you try. You can do it from your own perception because you just fool yourself into thinking that you're blind. At any rate, but when dealing with the ego, what I learned that I needed to do was I needed to, like another person, I needed to listen to it. I needed to listen to its story completely. And then this is where a lot of truth practice gets really messed up, because you hear stuff from your ego telling you stuff and it's contrary to what you believe, like say spiritually, and you're jumping in there, whether you say it or not, you're jumping in there with your mind going like, I don't want to hear that. That's not true. Why would you lie to me? Blah, 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 blah. All that kind of stuff. And it's in you. The reason why it's saying it is because it's in you and a part of you believes it. And it's showing you that, just like my ego is now bringing it up friendly and showing it. It's showing it to you then. It's showing you what's inside you. I remember a spiritual leader, I forget who was, I want to say C.S. Lewis, but I don't think that's him. He said, God's more concerned with what's in us rather than what should be in us. Okay, so what's in us is coming out. That's the truth. And when you listen to the ego, it's friendly with you. It's not your enemy. It's doing what you created it to do, was to give you that information. And then it gives you that information. And then at that point, I mean, if you don't listen to it, if you fight it, it's going to go, oh, we're not done with this. Oh, no. It just goes, look, I was not made to fail at this. So you better pack your lunch for a few days, because I am going to work on you till you admit that this is a problem. Okay? And if you hear it as a problem, like I did with my friend Gary, and I said, yeah, here's the problem. And I admitted to him. I said, that could be true. Okay? Like, well, if you don't pay this, the IRS is going to come in and throw you in jail. That could be true. That could be true, rather than, oh God, I got to get right to, but I've taken care of that, or I've got to get right on it, right, all that stuff. Like, that could be true. That could be true. But then if you do that, it's like everything else, you allow everything to get out of the way, the thoughts to get out of the way. Because once you hear it, then it's like you're saying to your ego, you're saying, okay, that could be true. Now, like I did with Gary, say, I'd like to look around a little more though. I'd like to look around a little more. And you know what the ego will do? Try it. The ego will say, okay, but it'll say this too. It might even not say okay at first. The first thing it's going to say is, all right, but don't move the furniture. Don't try to change the story. Do not do it. And of course, with me, when I did it with my friend Gary, and what I would do with my ego, at this point I go like, well, you know me better than that. I know, at least at this point, I go, not only am I not going to change the story, I wouldn't even know how to start, and I wouldn't know what to do with it. I'm not changing the story. I'm hearing you. I'm hearing what you're saying. Okay? I hear you. And now can I look around a little further at other things? And you know what? The ego will let you do that. It won't fight you. Try it. It will not fight you. As long as you hear it and you admit that that's a reality, it won't fight you. It might ask you, or might come up to you like mine eventually did and say, you can't do this, can you? And I go, no, I can't fight it. Okay, all right. But if you don't fight it, then it will allow you to look around. And and this is the interesting thing too, if you find something in the universe, which there's all kinds of possibilities, if you let go of the one that, is the worst one that you just are strangling to death, holding on to it, if you let it go, okay, because you're looking for something else and you've acknowledged, because you've already acknowledged it, that you've acknowledged it, you're moving on to look at something, the ego will let you look. It won't fight you. And if you find something that changes the whole scenario, that the dire warning or whatever it was the ego was saying this was going to happen, and it changes it, it transmutes it, it becomes something else, do you know what the ego will do? It will do nothing. It just goes, oh, okay. And it's almost like it's saying, I'm neutral about this. I'm made to point out what you're saying are danger, Will Robinson situations. I am here for that. And that's what I do. And if the situation changes and it's like I'm proved wrong, I got no ego in my ego. The ego doesn't have ego. Okay? The ego just says, okay. And it says, I got plenty more stuff down here to work with, and I got more to bring up. So it lets it go. And everything is copacetic. That's how it works. That's how it works. And that's why if you look at your thinking that way, if you look at your thinking like saying, listening to it, all right? But see, for instance, when I said to Gary, I said, you could kill yourself. That could be true. All right? I did not say, and I did not mean, and that's where I would get trapped, is if I said, oh my God, you could kill yourself and we got to stop that from happening. No. Look at it, acknowledge it, and then open the universe, open yourself to the universe. But you have to look at it first and acknowledge it. Then the ego is your friend, And thinking becomes your friend, because then thinking becomes more of a, then it allows you to observe more. Really allows you to observe rather than try and manipulate. And because, eventually, I think I've stopped. I'm done with this episode. I'm starting to see myself, what's the word? Words are coming out of me that are just like don't need to come out.